We are going to learn from a test lesson with Rabash. We're reading from part 5. We're going to start in item 35. Before we watch the recorded lesson, we're going to read the excerpt that Rabash will be interpreting. So part 5, item 35. We must thoroughly explain the meaning of mati and not mati, expanding and not expanding. It is said that in the beginning the light comes from Keter, and all 9 lights are contained in it. Afterwards, it returns to being not mati. When the light that reaches Keter exists, it once more exits it once more. But the 9 other lights remain in Keter, since Keter has the power to tolerate them. In that state, when the light is not expanding in Keter, the Keter extends the 9 lights from Chokhmah face to face and places them in Chokhmah. At that time, Chokhmah turns her interior after receiving the 9 lights and shines to Binah face to face. It is only illumination, but she still does not leave her 7 lights. So now we'll start the lesson.
And how does he receive it? Only by the screen in order to bestow. If so, all the changes that we're talking about are not about the light. We're talking about the vessels, and there shouldn't be any change in the lights. So what do we need to look for? All the changes only happen in the receiving vessels. This is what he says. If he has no screen that he doesn't see, since the screen of the 4th phase, since there's a rule that everything has 4 phases, therefore when it departs from the 4 in the 4, the 3 in the 4, until all of the 4 degrees are refined. So on the one hand, it could be departure at once, because the entire 4th phase departed. On the other hand, we can say there's 4 couplings. So he wants to explain why the Rav says on the one hand that we've learned that there's departure at once. On the other hand, we learned that there's 4 couplings. There's tamim, flavors, and nekudot, dots. So he says, in terms of the departure of the 4th phase, there was 1 cancellation, once. And that's similar to how a person who's in a room and wants to leave until he leaves another room and another room and another room, but ultimately he says he wants to come out, and so he's coming out, and there's no other way. So all of the changes are in the receiving vessels. This is why he says if he has no screen, then he doesn't see. Since there's a rule in anything, there's 4 phases. So it departs the 4 in the 4, the 3 in the 4, until all of the 4 refine. So on the one hand, it can be departure at once, because the complete 4th phase has departed. On the other hand, we can say there's 4 couplings. He wants to say, on the one hand, we've learned that there's a departure that happens at once. On the other hand, we learned that there's 4 couplings, tamim and nekudot, flavors and dots. So he says, in terms of the departure of the 4th phase, there was 1 cancellation. And this is the matter. It's similar to when a person wants to leave the room, he wants to come out, so he leaves one room and another room and another room. But in terms of what he wants to come out. So he comes out. And he can't have it any other way. So he says they're an allegory, not an allegory, it's a virtue. What's the difference? The allegory, we need to learn that, not just to hear it as a remedy. We need to learn the allegory, but as knowledge. He said it's that the surrounding light says you are not doing this right with regards to the nekudot. He makes conditions. So he says cancel the screen, and then again and again. All of that is redundant. So what is he telling him? Cancel the screen. So he canceled it. It tells him flavors and dots, cancel that too. So what's your depiction here? If he gives an allegory, it should be understood. He says you need to come out. That's how you should learn it. So when he comes to the third room, he still wants to leave. So since it's included in the fourth, he only has it from the fourth. He doesn't make the tamim and nekudot and all of that. We learn what happened afterwards. But then when he comes, he says, do this and this and that, all those conditions. No, he says one thing. Your path is wrong. That's it. The Rav asks a question. One time, the Rav says, we've learned that the departure is at once. I understand. The surrounding light canceled it, rose to the Rosh of the degree. Another time, in a different place, the Rav says, until he rose to the Rosh, there were 4 couplings. The degree of Chokhmah, the degree of Binah. So he's asking if it's all at once or one after the other. So it seems like a contradiction. He also asks here, what's the difference between third phase in the fourth, in Parzuf Ab of the third phase, and now the third phase we say that a new expansion came, and that is a smaller degree. And the degree of 3 in the fourth of the third degree of Keter, we say no, that's not considered expansion, it's considered departure. It's reflected light. It's judgment. Why? It shines. Why not? It's a greater degree. Then the point that is in Galgalta is more important and great than the light that shines in Parzuf Ab, where it's only Chokhmah is its upper aspect. So he says this. What the Rav says at once, he wants to show us that the surrounding light canceled the screen. It told him your path is incorrect. But then right away, since from the side of the emanator there are no changes, and since that as long as the lower one has some screen, he can aim something, he still sees the light, feels the light, receives the light, and is impressed by the light. And since in every phase there's 4 phases, from which that comes from the four phases of direct light, so we discern the 4 in the fourth, and the third in the third, and the second in the fourth. And so the first expansion called Tamim, the light comes to shine to the lower ones. Then the lower one, what am I receiving now? The light. He received the light now. The light. Therefore, this is called expansion. It's called sitting, it's called Tamim, flavors, and it's called Rachamim, mercy. Then, when it canceled the screen, so the screen had to depart. So it turns out, what I'm saying now, the third in the fourth, called reflected light, he did not receive. So now, it's light to settle in, it must keep falling until it departs. So he says in the allegory that it's like a person who's falling from the 4th floor. from the fourth floor, he can't pick himself up before he reaches the ground. So he has to fall all the way. We can't say, no, he'll get up in the middle of it. That's impossible. So when a person falls from some degree, he has to fall all the way. But as long as he didn't reach the ground, when he reaches the ground, then we are discussing what we're discussing. So study the allegory. Don't ask. Try to understand the matter here. However, when there's a refinement of the screen, there's cries, I don't have a screen, I don't have the force to overcome, I have nothing now. What do you want? Give me the screen again. Force of overcoming in the Rosh of the degree. When he has a screen, he is now going to receive, this is called expansion. This will be called the gate of mercy. Why? Because there, what shined, he did not receive. So why do you need the departure? That's why it's called the reflected light and judgment. Why? The lights shine during the return of the lights to their emanator. Again, what we say that the last four are not in the light but only in the screen, all those degrees, they're included in four phases. And when it canceled, all the light departed, all the degree of Ta'amim departed. And after that, when the third emerged, he canceled the third. All the third departed, and a new light came. What's new light? Coupling of striking, direct light and reflected light, meaning that as long as he has a little bit that he can aim in order to bestow, he still sees the light. The light doesn't depart at all. Even if the light departed, it still doesn't mean there's place, but he doesn't see it. Even though the degree of the dots is higher, the 3 of 4 from Ab, in any case, this is during the departure. There's nothing to say here. He doesn't, it doesn't sit for him. In the Parzuf, the flavor of the degree of Ab, that's his. What's his? This is called direct light, light of mercy that he received and he can be in. Afterwards, we learn that in the Parzuf Ab as well, there's the fifth aspect of inner and surrounding. It's the clash between inner light and surrounding light, both in terms of Parzuf Ab and how we say the Tamim.
As we say that the screen is included 4 degrees, and as long as he has some kind of screen, he still receives the light. Because then light never departs, it's only the lower one. So now we'll understand how this rule came. When the level departs, although it certainly departs at once, as he says, the surrounding light canceled it. We still discern 4 stops along its way, according to what we said before. For example, when it is refined from phase 4 to phase 3, when the level of Keter disappears from the Parzuf, since there are 5 degrees, Kachab, Zeranpin, and Malchut, in the level of Keter, we discern 4 stops on its way in order of its departure. Keter in the level disappears first, and only lower 9 remain there. You then find that Chokhmah rose to the place of Keter, Bina to the place of Chokhmah, etc., till Malchut, in the place of Zer Anpin. Then phase 3 also refines and disappears. So Chokhmah disappears from the level, and then Bina ascends to the place of Keter, Zer Anpin to the place of Chokhmah, and Malchut to the place of Bina. After that, Bina too disappears from the level. Meaning phase 2 also refined, and there's only the screen of phase 1. We see that Malchut ascended to the place of Chokhmah and Zer Anpin instead of Keter. After Zer Anpin 2 disappears from the level, it's still refined in phase 1, and we're only left with root. So that's considered as Malchut rises to the pace of Keter. Finally, Malchut 2 disappears from the level, and you find the entire level of Keter that was the coarseness of root has disappeared from the Parzuf. Thus, even one level, which Parzuf Galgalta, who has phase 4, coarseness of phase 4, we discern that it makes 4 stops during its departure. However, we must understand that the matter of the couplings with the screen is it's on the side. It's the matter of the coupling with the screen does not apply during the departure of one level, since there is no innovation of form from here in the coarseness during the departure. He says this. However, we must understand that the matter of the couplings with the screen, what the Ari mentions as couplings, does not apply during the departure of one level, meaning couplings of Nikudot. Since there is no innovation of form here in the coarseness during the departure, he did not take during the departure a different coarseness, meaning extended phase 3, but the coarseness of phase 4 gradually departs. He didn't get a new coarseness now, but what the coarseness that was before in phase 4, since it was incorporated in 4 couplings, so it's not called a real coupling, what the Ari says. So we know that since there is no innovation of form here in the coarseness during the departure, that's why before the screen comes to the coarseness of phase 3, only phase of the refinement can be discerned here. The refinement rejects and expels the reflected light, as it is then unfit for coupling, as it is occupied with the refinement of that attribute, meaning that while phase 4 of 4, before phase 4 of 4, you still can't speak about the coupling of phase 3 and 4, since it still didn't attain coarseness in the departure of the light. From Tamim to Nekudot, yes. It's easier to learn this in a different way, since he wants to tell us that it departed at once. That's why we learn that the coupling is when phase 3, meaning the second expansion. But there still isn't a necessity to learn it here, or you can learn it there. So what does it mean? That as long as it did not depart of the light of phase 4, it can't extend phase 3. Now when phase 4 departs, so the coupling on phase 3 in 4, that's also true. But if you want to explain the words of the Ari, it's easier to interpret it that way. That's also true. What? That the couplings made in the departure aren't called actual couplings, since the departure, this is truth and that's truth. It's only a different language, you see? That's why you can study it here or there. They're both true. It's not a contradiction, you see? It is also known that the screen of the tabu of the above-mentioned first expansion of Parzuf Galgalta, that was refined, the Malchut, and reaches the Peh, was incorporated in all the records of the 10 Sefirot of the Guf. From all the couplings of 4-3 and onward, except for phase 4, which did not leave its records of bestowal. Bestowal is called to bestow to itself. As he says, Malchut is a receiver and not a bestower. So we also have to learn about itself. Why itself? Because he says that is holy. She did not cause anything for herself, but what? Her husband will fulfill her. She's caught receiving, but she bestows to herself. She cannot receive for herself. Here too, there are two things. There's bestowal. When could she bestow to herself? When she has a screen with coarseness, meaning that she can use the coarseness with the reflected light. We say the force to overcome is lost. That's why she could not extend another overcoming on 20%, let's say. Let's say 18%. That's a depiction. What does he want to say? Nothing is left, only a record of clothing. What's a record of clothing? We have to learn that on every degree, you can discern after the departure of the light two things. One, the record in the light, that does not depart. There's a law. The light that departs leaves a record in its place. That's called a record of clothing, the way the light was clothed. There's another record on behalf of the vessels, the way the light was extended. That record also remains. So what does remain? The last phase, the force to overcome she had, before the surrounding light came, the surrounding light weakened her. So we see that now there's only coarseness where she could make a screen on phase 3 of 4. She can receive in order to receive. She doesn't have the force to overcome. That's what he says here. And there we clarify we say that this screen on the taboo, when it ascends to the Rosh, was incorporated in all the records of the 10 Sefirot. But we speak about the highest phase, so it explains there that we regard primarily to the highest among them, which is phase 3, that draws the level of Chokhmah. Here we also have to know that we learn in phase, in Patzuf Ab, comes out from phase 3. But that's Chokhmah v'Keter. That's the actual Chokhmah. But every phase should get the phase against it. So I can't say that it receives from Keter of Keter. It also receives only Chokhmah of Keter. But it's not the same thing. It's Chokhmah, which is a degree of Keter. Even the Nefesh of Keter is greater, more important than Keter of Chokhmah. Just that wants to describe every phase that comes against it. So he says from phase 3.
נעבור לחלק הבא של השיעור.